The Story of America, From Earth's Formation to 2025. The Geological Birth and Early Human Settlement. 200 million years ago to about 15,000 years ago, around 200 million years ago, the Earth looked very different. The vast land masses that we now know as continents were merged into a single enormous supercontinent called Pangaea. This massive land was surrounded by a vast ocean, and it was the stage on which many geological and biological events took place. Over millions of years, Pangaea began to break apart due to tectonic plate movements, slowly drifting into separate continents. One of these was the land that would become North and South America. As the plates shifted, mountain ranges like the Rockies and the Andes started to rise, and vast river systems carved the landscape. The continent's diverse climates, from the Arctic tundras of the north to the tropical rainforests of the Amazon, formed the backdrop for an incredible variety of ecosystems. Fast forward to around 15,000 to 20,000 years ago, when the last ice age was in full swing. Vast sheets of ice covered much of North America, and sea levels were much lower than today. This exposed a land bridge called Beringia between Siberia and Alaska. It was across this bridge that the first humans migrated into the Americas, likely following herds of large game animals. These early inhabitants were hunter-gatherers living in small, mobile groups. They adapted to diverse environments, from icy tundras to dense forests. Over thousands of years, these groups spread across the continents, developing distinct cultures and ways of life. Among the many indigenous civilizations to rise were the Maya in Central America, known for their complex writing system, advanced calendar, and magnificent pyramids. The Aztecs in what is now Mexico, famed for their military prowess, religious ceremonies, and sprawling capital city, Tenochtitlan. The Inca Empire in the Andes Mountains, renowned for their engineering skills, extensive road networks, and agricultural terraces. These societies thrived for centuries, developing rich cultures and complex political systems long before European explorers arrived. 2. European exploration and colonization, 149–21776. The story of America dramatically shifted in 1492, when an Italian navigator named Christopher Columbus, sailing under the Spanish flag, crossed the Atlantic Ocean and landed in the Caribbean. Although Columbus believed he had reached Asia, his voyages opened the door for Europe's widespread exploration and colonization of the Americas. Spain quickly established colonies in Central and South America, exploiting natural resources and imposing their culture and religion on indigenous peoples. England, France, and the Netherlands soon followed, establishing settlements along the North American coast. These colonial endeavors were marked by both cooperation and conflict. European settlers brought new technologies, animals, and crops, but also diseases like smallpox that devastated native populations. Competition for land and resources led to numerous wars between European powers, and tragically, many Native American tribes were displaced or destroyed. The English colonies on the eastern seaboard grew rapidly, with economies based on agriculture, trade, and increasingly, the labor of enslaved Africans. The reliance on slavery sowed the seeds of future conflict within these territories. 3. The American Revolution and the Birth of a Nation, 1776 to 1789. By the mid-18th century, tensions between the British Crown and its American colonies escalated. Colonists resented taxes imposed without their consent, restrictions on westward expansion, and lack of political representation. This unrest erupted into open rebellion in 1775, marking the start of the American Revolutionary War. The colonies united to seek independence, and on July 4, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was adopted. Drafted primarily by Thomas Jefferson, it famously declared that all men are created equal and endowed with unalienable rights. The Revolution was a brutal, hard-fought war. The colonial militias and the fledgling Continental Army, led by George Washington, faced the well-equipped British forces. Support from France, notably after the American victory at the Battle of Saratoga, proved decisive. After 8 years of warfare, the British surrendered in 1781 at Yorktown, and the Treaty of Paris in 1783 formally recognized the independence of the United States. In 1787, the newly formed nation crafted its constitution, establishing a federal system of government with checks and balances, a revolutionary framework that remains the foundation of American democracy for expansion and conflict. The 19th century, 1800 to 1900, the 19th century was an era of dramatic growth and change. The belief in manifest destiny, the idea that the United States was destined to expand across the continent, drove settlers westward. The Louisiana Purchase of 1803 doubled the nation's size, and expeditions by Lewis and Clark mapped the new lands. However, expansion came at a heavy cost to Native American tribes. Through forced relocations, like the Trail of Tears, indigenous peoples were uprooted from their ancestral lands, facing death and hardship. Meanwhile, deep divisions over the institution of slavery fractured the nation. The northern states moved toward abolition, while the southern economy and society depended heavily on enslaved labor. These tensions culminated in the Civil War, 1861 to 1865, the bloodiest conflict in American history. President Abraham Lincoln led the Union forces against the Confederacy, which sought to preserve slavery and states' rights. The war resulted in nearly 620,000 deaths and left a scarred nation. The Union victory ended slavery, but racial tensions and segregation persisted well into the following centuries. Post-war America entered the Industrial Revolution. Railroads, factories, and cities expanded rapidly, turning the United States into a global industrial power. The United States on the world stage, World Wars, and the Great Depression, 1900 to 1945. In the 20th century, America's role on the global stage grew. Though initially isolationist, the country was drawn into World War I in 1917, tipping the balance in favor of the Allies. The post-war years saw a boom known as the Roaring Twenties, marked by cultural dynamism and economic growth. But this prosperity ended abruptly with the Great Depression in 1929, the worst economic downturn in modern history. Millions were unemployed and hardship was widespread. The rise of totalitarian regimes in Europe and Asia led to World War II, 1939 to 1945. After the attack on Pearl Harbor by Japan in 1941, America declared war, mobilizing its vast industrial and military resources. The United States became the leader of the Allied powers, fighting on multiple fronts. The war ended with the dramatic and controversial use of atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945. VI, the Cold War, Civil Rights, and the Space Race, 1945 to 2000. After World War II, the world was divided into two opposing camps, led by the United States and the Soviet Union, marking the beginning of the Cold War. This was a period of political tension, nuclear arms races, espionage, and proxy wars around the globe. Domestically, America faced challenges and transformations. The civil rights movement sought to end racial discrimination and segregation. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. inspired millions with their messages of nonviolent resistance and equality. In the 1960s, America and the Soviet Union competed in the space race. In 1969, astronaut Neil Armstrong became the first human to walk on the moon, a monumental achievement for humanity and a symbol of American scientific prowess. The latter part of the century also saw the turbulent Vietnam War, protests, and political scandals such as Watergate, which shook public trust in government. 7. The 21st century, terrorism, technology, and turmoil. 2000 to 2025, the dawn of the 21st century was marked by both tragedy and rapid change. On September 11, 2001, terrorist attacks by Al-Qaeda struck the World Trade Center in New York City and the Pentagon, killing nearly 3,000 people. This event reshaped American foreign and domestic policy. America launched the War on Terror, invading Afghanistan and later Iraq, with the goal of dismantling terrorist networks and promoting democracy. Meanwhile, technological advances transformed society. The rise of the internet, smartphones, and social media altered how people communicate, work, and engage politically. However, the United States faced deep political divisions, economic crises, including the 2008 financial meltdown, and ongoing debates about immigration, healthcare, and civil rights. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented health and economic challenges, claiming hundreds of thousands of lives in America and worldwide. 8. Scary and mysterious events in American history. Beyond wars and politics, America has its share of eerie and mysterious stories. The Salem witch trials of 1692 were a dark period of hysteria, where dozens were accused of witchcraft and executed in Massachusetts. This episode reflects the dangers of mass panic and injustice. The Manson family murders in 1969 shocked the nation when cult leader Charles Manson orchestrated brutal killings that defied understanding. Area 51, a secretive military base in Nevada, has long been the subject of conspiracy theories about UFOs and alien encounters, fueling speculation and fear. The Amityville horror story, stemming from a supposedly haunted house in New York during the 1970s, inspired countless horror films and remains a cultural phenomenon. IX. Conclusion. The story of America is a vast tapestry of geological wonders, brave human journeys, revolutionary ideas, social struggles, scientific triumphs, and complex challenges. From the ancient supercontinent of Pangaea to the bustling, diverse society of 2025, America has undergone immense transformation. It has been a land of opportunity and conflict, innovation and controversy, hope and fear. This narrative, though lengthy, barely scratches the surface of a nation constantly evolving its history, a testament to resilience and change. A story still being written every day.